I'm covered in sweat and it's hotter than hell in here. That's because I've been playing Rising Hell on the Steam PC platform. Welcome everybody to I Dream of Indie. My name's Gamer Joe, bringing you another review today. Yes, we are looking at Rising Hell, a game that's been in early access for a while on Steam, but now it is finally heading out, and it's also going to be available on consoles. If you are offended by religious undertones, this probably isn't going to be the game for you, but there's really not much story here anyways. The game is called Rising Hell after all. You probably could have assumed it had to do with Lucifer, the devil, and all sorts of other hellish beings, but the main idea here is that Lucifer has attempted to overthrow heaven and has failed. Lucifer is trapped within a tree by the heavens, forever doomed inside, or is he? No. Lucifer still manages to be a naughty boy inside of this tree. The tree becomes demonic itself, and it becomes known as Zaquam. This Zaquam tree basically becomes a breeding ground for demons and all sorts of other nasty creatures that await the revival of Lucifer. The three characters that you'll play as in Hell Rising, however, are trapped inside and they want out, and that's exactly where you take over, trying to battle your way out of this demonic evil hell tree. Rising Hell features 3 different game modes to choose between. The main meat of this game is going to be the Conquest mode, where you're battling your way through level after level, but there are also gauntlet challenges that you can take on, and weekly challenges as well. There are 3 different characters to choose from in this game, though you will have to unlock 2 of them using dark shards that you'll collect along your journey. You begin with Arok, the Fallenborn, who's more of a close-range melee attacker type, who is very strong. There is Zalos, the Rogue Fiend, who kind of plays more like a Mega Man character with a Mega Buster of sorts. He can shoot projectiles out of his hands. And then we have Sidna the Phantasma, who's able to also strike enemies from a distance with projectiles, but can float in the air a little bit longer, and her consistency in shooting isn't quite the same as Zalos's. I enjoyed the differences between these 3 characters. It's nice that you have a little bit of variety, and they feel different enough from one another. All 3 were enjoyable to use. I didn't really have a preference. This is going to be a very challenging game. I'm not going to sugarcoat that, but it's a very easy game for anyone to pick up and play at least. Whether you'll get good at it is another question, but essentially you have a jump, a double jump. You can also jump off of walls. You'll need to in this game. You have your basic attack, and you can interact with certain items and objects as well. And then you have a dash, which was sort of forgotten by me for a while, but it did come in handy once I started using it more, particularly on the game's bosses. Each of the game's levels sort of feels like a mini tower that you're slowly battling your way up, taking out enemies along the way, and trying to survive for as long as possible, but thankfully there's a lot of power-ups along the path that will help you. Though this game is challenging, there are some difficulty options here. Well, really 2. There's a redemption mode that you can enable, and this will allow you to die up to 3 times and sort of pick up from where you left off, or at least close to that area. So the downside to this is that you unfortunately won't increase your overall agony level as a character. I thought that mechanically, Rising Hell felt really good. The jumping is solid, I was bouncing off walls with no problem whatsoever, and I feel like the combat is engaging enough. There is a lot of mashing going on here, but you do need to dash out of the way at the right moment, and you will have to learn enemy patterns. The most that I struggled with this game were with the mini-bosses that are about halfway up this tree area of sorts, and then you have the main bosses, which again, you will have to learn their patterns, but once you do, you are able to adapt and get better and better at this title. There are also a bunch of relics that can be unlocked that you can equip to your character. Unfortunately, while they come with an upside, there's usually a downside to these as well, so you'll have to weigh the risk-reward. As you climb higher, though, you will eventually come to crossroads where you'll be able to upgrade a little bit if you have enough bloodstones. These bloodstones can increase your abilities or your statistics in certain ways that will make the climb hopefully a little bit easier for you. For example, you might be able to increase the amount of hit points that you can take, or the amount of blood shards that you'll collect. So again, you have to weigh your options. You might want to bypass some of these areas and hold on to those blood shards for a later time where a better reward is available, because some of these rewards are random and you don't exactly know what's coming next. You might get a revive, which is crucial in this game because if you die, obviously, you get to come back, and that's big in a game where one death is everything, at least if you're playing on the default difficulty. The Conquest mode is fun for a while, and it is an enjoyable combat system that they've implemented here, but this game suffers from the same problem I have with a lot of roguelites, having to repeat the same areas over and over again because the grind is a little bit slow in this one. How many times can I really fight Dagon the Eyeball boss, for example, before I'm a little little bit tired of it. I took on him around 10 to 12 times throughout this review. There's only so much you can take. I could have used a little bit more variety. Honestly, give me like 10 or 12 awesome levels like this instead of these roguelite elements in this particular game. Still, compared to other games I've played of this genre, I was making progress, I was getting through it, but yeah, things do get repetitive, unfortunately, and you get a little tired of the environments, which is a shame because this game is pretty nice looking. There's some great creativity that went into the graphics, actually. It all pops vibrantly, the hellish landscapes are wonderful to look at, and there's decent variety between the different worlds. Animations are fluid throughout, and I also thought the soundtrack was really enjoyable. You probably could have guessed this, but yes, it's a metal soundtrack, but a really good one with some catchy melodies. You do get a different track for each level, which is nice at least, so it doesn't get super repetitive. Though again, it does get a little repetitive because you do play the same levels over and over again, but at least it wasn't the same song for every single level. I have to say, it's really nice that you can choose between paths in this game at certain points as well. There are junctions where you can go left or right through certain doors, and one path will lead you to, say for example, a room of buzzsaws that you have to wall jump around, or a path with more enemies. So it becomes, again, a risk-reward choice, and you will eventually learn which way you prefer. Adding even more to this risk are some completely optional rooms. They might have a great reward for you, and they're very challenging, but they might also burn you with really not much that was worth going through the trouble. So you do have to be careful because you only have one life to live, again on the normal difficulty, so I always appreciated that this game gave you different paths and options, even though some of those paths do look similar to one another. But overall, I liked Rising Hell. I think this game is very playable, very enjoyable, and fun in short bursts. Do I want to sit there for 5 hours straight and fight Dagon the Eyeball over and over again and all the other enemies that I will see on repeat? No, not really, but I could see picking this one up for an hour or two, grinding out some experience, and then putting it down and coming back to it later. So it's a fun little experience here. I could have done without the roguelite elements myself. I would have preferred just level after level defeating bosses, but hey, that's the old school nature of who I am. If you're a fan of roguelite games, you're really going to enjoy this one, I think. Thank you so much for watching the latest video from I Dream of Indie. We'd now like to take a moment to thank our great indie warriors who support us through channel memberships. Mitchell Hall, Kevilo, Bunny, Bill Tikaz, Christian Cruz, Strict9, Rosie Syntax, Chris Jackson, Nathan Moore, Peach, Adriana Amato, CJR, Jesse, Falco, Lombardi, C. Coil, and Skeptism. Thank you for all you do for independent games, developers, and publishers. Everybody else, head down to the description box below or head on over to idreamofindie.com. Let's defeat the Echo Chamber and bring a voice to the voiceless ones in gaming.